About this time last year, January, February 2019, 8 new NFL head coaches were hired. And at the time, I ranked them, and I got a lot of stuff wrong, I'll be honest. So what I want to do is revisit that topic, discuss what happened, how things went down, and ultimately what I want to do is re-rank the 8 head coaches that were hired going into last year. But rather than ranking them number 1 through 8, I came up with 5 different tiers that they all fit into. So like the first tier is the 2 best coaches. The next tier is coaches that have good futures ahead of them. The third tier is coaches that, we got to just kind of wait and see. The fourth tier is the bad coach. There was a coach that was just bad. And the fifth tier was the coach that got fired. And so let's start with the obvious one. The coach that got fired was the Browns hired and then fired Freddie Kitchens after just one season. And I hate to admit it, it's embarrassing, but I was actually optimistic when they hired Freddie Kitchens. I think it's just because I eternally would like to see the Browns not be a miserable, horrible organization. I had an optimistic view, and I hate to admit that. I was very much wrong. But Freddie Kitchens had worked with Baker Mayfield in the past. And unfortunately, I just gave the Browns far too much credit and far too much respect. All the signs were there that this was a terrible, terrible hire. He'd never been a head coach before. He was retained from the previous staff. But I just chose to believe. My dumb self thought, man, even the Browns wouldn't really hire a guy who has no idea what he's doing, right? Oh, I was wrong. Oh, man, that's exactly what they did. The Browns hired a guy who, he had no idea what he was doing. It's so painfully clear. It's harsh. It's true. Not very often. Often people, especially fans of sports, go, the guy is terrible. He's an idiot. And usually I go, you're just being harsh. You don't know the game very well. No, in this case, Freddie Kitchens, nothing but love. He's a great position coach. Should never have been a head coach. He was in way over his head from day one. He could not even manage. He really couldn't. He struggled to manage the Browns' star players. He misused them a lot on offense. His play calls were terrible. He called a draw, literally called a running play on 4th and 9. He just could never make adjustments on offense. There are so many things from organizational standards to the way he called plays to the way he made adjustments. Everything was wrong. Freddie Kitchens had no idea what he was doing, was in way over his head. And, now he's now the Giants' tight ends coach. That's great. That's exactly where he belongs. He should never have been a head coach. It's kind of look up the Peter principle. That's exactly what happened to Freddie Kitchens. And so he was by far the worst hire, and he's the one that got fired justifiably after just one season. Now let's go back to the top of the list, though. We'll start with the 2 best coaches that were hired last year in 2019, and then we will go down from there. The 2 best coaches that were hired last offseason were, number 1, the Packers hiring Matt LaFleur, and number 2, the Dolphins hiring Brian Flores. Now, here's the irony in all of this, right? I am very clear. I try to admit when I'm wrong about stuff. And what's funny is that I believe in my initial ranking a year ago, I believe I ranked these 2 guys the 2 worst coaches that were hired. I was like, the Dolphins hired a defensive-minded coach who is an assistant of the Patriots. We've seen that before. That doesn't work. What about young Josh Rosen? You want to get an offensive guy to help the young quarterback. Man, I just whiffed. I was totally wrong. Brian Flores has been phenomenal. And the Packers, Matt LaFleur was 39 years old. Aaron Rodgers, 35. I'm like, they're basically the same age. They're more like brothers in age than they would be more likely to have a coach-to-player relationship. I'm like, there's no way Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers works, right? No. Again, Zach was very, very wrong. The Packers went 13-3. They won the NFC North. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game. They were embarrassed by the 49ers, but hey, still a great season. My only concern about Matt LaFleur is the longevity of the Packers' success. The Packers, Aaron Rodgers, their quarterback, is getting older and older. And, the Packers did go 13-3, but the way they did it was ugly. Rodgers wasn't great. It was a lot of defensive struggles, and Rodgers was fine, but he certainly isn't the star quarterback he once was. And so my only question, I love the Matt LaFleur hire. Clearly, he was the right guy for the job. He elevated the Packers. But the question is, where will the Packers be 3 years from now? When Aaron Rodgers is said and done and time is taken its toll on the Packers organization, where will they be years from now? I have no idea. But for now, it's very clear. Yeah, Matt LaFleur was the right guy for the job. And for at least for last year, he did a great job. Now, the Dolphins on paper didn't have a great year. The Dolphins went to 5-11. They have the 5th overall pick coming up in the NFL draft. But you can't just trust stats and numbers. I have never seen a team improve more over the course of a season than what we saw with the 2019 Dolphins. The Dolphins got dramatically better from week 1 to the end of the year. They're not a very talented roster. In fact, it's an awful roster. There's just not a lot of talent there. But they're well coached. It's pretty interesting. In the first 2 weeks of the season, they were destroyed by the Ravens, 59-10. They lost to the Ravens week 1. And then week 2, in Miami, at home, they got beat by the Patriots 43-0. They were embarrassed by the Patriots week 2. But slowly but surely, the Dolphins made strides. They got better and better. If you go watch the film, guys really improved. They started making plays. They stepped up. Some guys you'd never heard of started emerging. Guys that were interns at the beginning of the year, literally, like, their jokes were like, guy's a walk-on, an intern. I've never heard of him. And I'm telling you, the Dolphins had the best 5-win season I've ever seen in my life. I was like, oh, wow. And the cool thing is it all culminated with a Week 17 victory of the Patriots. The Patriots were trying to win. If the Patriots had won the game, they would have had a first-round bye in the playoffs. In fact, it's funny, the Patriots lost in the first round of the playoffs because they didn't have a bye. And what's cool is the Dolphins beat the Patriots in Foxborough, Massachusetts, in Gillette Stadium, at the Patriots' place. The Dolphins beat them. And the turnaround to go from week 2, losing at home to the Patriots 43-0, to week 17, beat a Patriots team at the end of the year that's trying to win in the Patriots' home stadium. That's awesome. And what the reality is, the Dolphins got a great head coach in Brian Flores. I was not a believer. I was very much wrong. He's the right guy for the job. He changed the culture. He elevated that team, and he was the right guy absolutely for the job in Miami. Now we have 2 coaches that I believe have a bright future. It's the Broncos' Vic Fangio and the Cardinals' Cliff Kingsbury. Now, the biggest reason why I feel good about these 2 coaches moving forward is actually the emergence of their rookie quarterbacks. Kyler Murray with the Cardinals won the Rookie of the Year. He's phenomenal. And then Drew Lock at the end of the year for the Denver Broncos. Wow. I've been watching the film. He looks awesome. And I admit, these rankings and putting these 2 coaches as coaches that I believe have a good future, I'm putting them there because of the situation they're in, not just because of the coach. Like, if they didn't have the quarterback, if they didn't have momentum moving forward, they probably wouldn't be here. But the reality is, I buy into Kyler long-term, and I buy into Drew Lock long-term. I also love the Broncos' new offensive coordinator, Pat Shurmur. He was a head coach before. He's best suited as an offensive coordinator. I feel great about the Broncos. I feel great about the Cardinals moving forward. They're building something. I think the future is bright in both of those cities with those franchises. But I will say, having a good situation does not automatically mean I believe in a coach. The Jets have a promising young quarterback named Sam Darnold. Love him. He's great. Got a great arm. Makes plays. There's not many people around him, and he tends to elevate the people around him, even in the NFL, even in New York. But last offseason, the New York Jets hired Adam Gase as their head coach. And so what I did is I put Adam Gase in the let's wait and see category. I don't really have a reason. That's not true. There are plenty of reasons to not believe in Adam Gase. Since he got to New York, it's been kind of a circus. There's been a lot of weird media stuff, from the way he was introduced to horrible stories about Sam Darnold to things going wrong with players and all kinds of rumors about the organization just swirling around everywhere. There's all this noise in New York. So I think it might work. I really believe, because here's the thing. I believe in Sam Darnold, the quarterback. I think Sam Darnold's great. The question is Adam Gase the coach that ultimately will succeed with Sam Darnold? I don't know. That's why we got to wait and see. I believe in Sam. I'm not sure about the coach yet, but I think without Adam Gase, another guy could make it work with Sam Darnold. And so that is why we're in the wait and see period with Adam Gase in New York. I'm also in the wait and see mode with the Buccaneers head coach, Bruce Arians. For me, this past year was actually a gigantic disappointment with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I was really excited to watch, Jameis Winston, Bruce Arians, a really good offensive-minded coach. They're going to put them together. It's going to be great. And Jameis Winston had a really weird year. He led the NFL in passing yards, which is great, I guess. But yards are, again, I'm not a big stats guy. I don't care. He had 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. He turned over the ball constantly. It's disgusting how many turnovers Jameis Winston had. And it's just odd. Now, some people, Carson Palmer used to play for Bruce Arians in Arizona, and Carson Palmer came out and said, and I'm a big Carson Palmer fan. He's negatively viewed in like the public opinion, but Carson Palmer, I think, is one of the more underrated quarterbacks. Not a Hall of Famer, nothing like that, but I do think a quality quarterback that deserves more respect is Carson Palmer. Carson Palmer came out and said that year 1 to 2 with Bruce Arians, he made a big leap forward because it's complicated. You're asking a guy to throw the ball all over the yard, aggressively downfield. And year 1 to 2, you make a big leap in Bruce Arians' system. So maybe that's what happens with Jameis Winston. However, the problem is we didn't see that. We didn't see a good jump. In year 1, we saw Jameis Winston play very inconsistently. Does he get better in year 2? Maybe. But I will say, I'm not ready to give up on Bruce Arians. I believe in Bruce Arians. Bruce Arians is a proven head coach in the NFL. I think if anything is the problem in Tampa Bay, it's probably the quarterback, Jameis Winston. I don't know. That's why I'm still in wait and see mode with Bruce Arians. I believe in him. I don't believe in the quarterback. Is it going to work long term? I don't know. We're going to wait one more year and find out. Now, finally, we have the bad coach. Being the, quote, bad coach is better than being the fired coach. Freddie Kitchens was fired by the Browns. That's the worst coach that was hired last year. But I'm still not at all impressed by the Bengals head coach, Zac Taylor. Now, the one thing I will say about Zac Taylor, he spells his name right. Z-A-C. That's how I spell my name. That's how he spells his name. So does Zac Efron spell his name that way? Congratulations. Hey, that's not, I guess I'm nobody, and Zac Efron's cool, and Zac Taylor's a bad coach, so do what you want with that. I have no idea. But everything I saw was not great from the Cincinnati Bengals organization, and especially from Zac Taylor. He was hired from the Rams organization. This is the career trajectory that Zac Taylor took. 2 years ago, Zac Taylor was the LA Rams quarterback coach. He went directly from quarterback coach in LA to head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals. That's a very rare move. Usually you see a guy go from coordinator to head coach. You almost never see a guy go from quarterback coach to head coach who's never called plays before. It's like, ooh, that's weird. Very, very weird to see that. It's an odd move. And it seems to me like Zac Taylor was in way over his head. First of all, he was not able to get the best out of Andy Dalton. One of the things I was excited for is, hey, if Zac Taylor is supposedly this offensive genius, maybe he's the guy that can help save Andy Dalton's career. Oh, that didn't happen. In fact, they even had to bench Andy Dalton at one point. That's bad. It's not good. And then when they benched Andy Dalton, they played a rookie quarterback, Ryan Finley. Oh, Ryan Finley was terrible. He was a mess. I don't know why. I have no idea why they even made the change. Were they trying to lose games? That's what it literally felt like. But here's the reality. The Cincinnati Bengals have the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. And they're probably going to draft young quarterback Joe Burrow out of LSU. I love Joe Burrow. He's phenomenal. He's one of my favorite quarterbacks in years. He does everything right. However, I have no confidence that Zac Taylor is the guy to teach Joe Burrow how to play quarterback in the NFL. It's sad because I think Joe Burrow's phenomenal. And again, I have no confidence that Zac Taylor is the guy to make him successful in the NFL. It's sad to me. I love Cincinnati. I'm literally going to move there in August. I'm not kidding. The beautiful part of my job, I can live anywhere in the world as long as there's a fast enough internet connection. I'm choosing to live in Cincinnati. It's my favorite city on the planet. I love Cincinnati. I'm weird. You might not. I love it. I really love Cincinnati. And it's a shame that the football program, the football team in Cincinnati has bad ownership, a bad head coach, and they're going to get a star player who's probably going to massively, massively underachieve. But I know this, that my lack of confidence that Zac Taylor can get it done tells me that Zac Taylor is a bad coach and that the Bengals hired a bad coach by hiring Zac Taylor. So again, here's how I would re-rank the 2019 NFL head coaching hires. The 2 best were the Dolphins hiring Brian Flores and the Packers hiring Matt LaFleur. The 2 guys with a good future coming up is the Broncos' Vic Fangio and the Cardinals' Cliff Kingsbury. The 2 guys I want to wait and see how things work out are the Jets' Adam Gase and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers' Bruce Arians. The bad head coach is Zach Taylor that the Bengals hired. And then the guy who got fired, the worst of the worst, is Freddie Kitchens, the head coach, the former head coach, now tight ends coach of the Giants, former head coach of the Cleveland Browns. He was awful. He was the worst of the worst. He got fired. And that's how I would re-rank the new coaches from 2019.